At 4:01 p.m. on Friday the 29th of June, using real-time analysis of consumer comments on Twitter of the unfolding Barclays banking crisis, Spectrum Insight predicted that Bob Diamond would resign. Our prediction was made on the basis that consumer reaction to the crisis, and Diamond in particular, wasn't merely anger, but predominantly one of disgust, a particularly strong and powerful emotion from which we predicted it would be virtually impossible to recover. You can watch that particular broadcast using the link shown at the foot of this slide. We continued to follow the Barclays crisis over the weekend of the 30th of June, and on Monday the 2nd of July analysed consumer response to the news that Marcus Aegeus, Barclays chairman, had by then resigned. At that point it was generally felt the chairman's action had been taken to draw pressure away from Diamond, and that the CEO's position would be safe, at least in the short term, if he could perform well in front of a committee of MPs planned for Wednesday the 4th of July. But insight from social media comments over the weekend and into the Monday, after news of Marcus Aegeus stepping down had been confirmed, painted a very different story to us. He told us that Diamond's position remained untenable, and again we said that Diamond would not survive. Less than 24 hours later, Diamond was gone. So what was it that made us so confident this would be the outcome? The reason, as you can see from this chart, was that despite consumer anger directed at Chairman Marcus Aegeus, reaction to Diamond remained one of disgust. In effect, this was Barclays consumers saying to the world, through social media, that the critical bond of trust between customer and bank, with Diamond in charge, had been irreparably damaged. So, does this mean we can predict the future? At the end of the previous slide, we asked the question, does this mean we can predict the future? The reality, of course, is no, we can't. But what we can do, as the Bob Diamond example illustrates, is use consumer insight from social media to assess the likelihood of an event occurring with high levels of confidence. One obvious question that does arise, given what we now understand about the circumstances of Diamond's resignation, is whether this consumer reaction to him was the main factor in his decision to go. In fact, and possibly surprisingly, the actual reason why Diamond resigned isn't of great relevance. The reason for this is largely down to a phenomenon known as the wisdom of crowds. We won't cover this here for reasons of time. You'll find a great deal about it by Googling the term on the web. But in effect, this is the process of taking account of the collective opinion of a group, in this case Barclays consumers on Twitter, rather than a single expert to answer a question. But whatever the reasons cited in public, it was clear that Barclays customers felt Diamond's time was up, and ultimately he had to go. It's important to remember that the data on which our insight is based was captured on a 24/7 basis over the whole weekend. Now imagine the cost of using traditional market research methods to do this. In fact, we make absolutely no charge for the data that we use. In any event, traditional market research will be unable to capture insight at the same level of detail over such a continuous time period. But this raises one very important question, which is how can we rely upon what is obviously a biased sample that social media inevitably represents? We're now going to look at this and explain how we can actually use it to reveal insight traditional market research frequently misses. The dots on this slide represent consumers, and the red ones are those who have tweeted about a bad brand experience they've had. Many will do so at the time it happened, or very shortly afterwards. Now let's take a sample for a traditional market research project. Here's another, and another. Immediately, you'll see that our beautifully constructed random sample contains very few red dots. In reality, these red dots, actual people of course, would be treated as what are called outliers. It's known that outliers can be important, but all too frequently due to time, budgets, and a lack of data, they're actually ignored. Now let's look at our sample, and immediately we can see that we've captured the crucial views and opinions missed by the traditional market research. It's worth saying that we capture a lot of the consumers who would also have been in the traditional market research sample, and take their views and opinions into account as well. In fact, using this methodology, we can identify invaluable insight into brands. This is one reason why we could see that Tesco was experiencing the problems that it has. But you'll have to contact us to find out more about that, and we'll tell you how on the next and final slide. In summary, we've demonstrated that social media can provide real-time consumer insight into the likelihood of critical events occurring, and that while there is no such thing as absolute certainty, this can be done with high levels of confidence. We've also demonstrated that measuring tonal sentiment simply as negative or positive is of little, if any, value, especially during a crisis when doing so achieves little more than stating the obvious. What does add tremendous value, however, is measuring tonal sentiment in terms of consumer emotional reaction in real time. Not only can this make a very significant difference to determining likely outcomes based on consumer insight, but also in enabling the best possible decisions to be made by brand, marketing, and PR management, and of course, the senior management in any organization. To find out more about Spectrum Insight and the work that we do, please contact us using these details. And thank you for listening.